Friends, a woman police officer walks into a cell and with absolute calm tells the prisoner, "You have exactly 2 months of life left. After that your death sentence will be carried out. If you have a last wish, let us know, we will try to grant it." But the condemned man does not cry, does not beg, does not plead for mercy. He simply smiles and replies, "My last wish is to spend every night until the day of my death with a woman." The officer is left stunned, completely bewildered. Then she says, "That is impossible. We cannot bring a random woman here just to grant a wish like that." But the prisoner stares straight into her eyes and replies with insolence, "Then why don't you do it?" The officer clenches her jaw. She is furious, but manages to control herself. "I am a police officer," she says. "I am not here to indulge the fantasies of a condemned man." But he does not back down. "Then my wish remains the same." The question is, did the officer end up fulfilling that last wish? What happened next is a story that will leave you speechless. It is based on true events. Stay until the end, and if you like this video, do not forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you do not miss stories like this. Let us begin. The grey coldness of the pretrial detention cell was only interrupted by the flickering light hanging over Tyler's head. He was sitting motionless on the narrow bunk with his back against the wall and his gaze lost in emptiness. In the cell there was silence, except for the distant hum of the ceiling fans and the occasional tapping of some guard's baton. Although he was barely 21 years old, in Tyler's eyes one could read a strange maturity born of pain, of regret, and of something more, of a resignation deeply rooted. In the station, 1 floor above, Detective Megan walked firmly down the hallway holding a thin folder in her hands. Tall, confident, and dressed in the regulation blue uniform, Megan had joined the force only 2 years earlier but had already earned the respect of her superiors. She was known for her sharp sense of justice, her unwavering discipline, and her courage beyond all doubt. The daughter of immigrants, she had grown up in a tough neighborhood in Detroit and had made her way into the system through sheer character and determination. For her, crime should never be tolerated, no matter who committed it. However, this case was different. She stopped in front of the detention cell and lowered her gaze to the name on the file, Tyler Brox, accused of murdering his own mother. The accusation had shaken public opinion, and the speed of the trial left no room for doubt. The court had sentenced him to death. Megan opened the cell door and entered. Her boots echoed softly on the concrete floor. Tyler slowly turned his head and met her gaze. His face was serene, almost at peace. "Tyler," she said with a firm voice but not cruel, "you have only 2 months before the sentence is carried out. According to state protocol, those condemned to death are allowed to express a last wish. If you want something before the time comes, tell me now. We will see if it is possible." There was a pause. Then to her surprise Tyler smiled. There was no mockery nor sadness in that smile. It was strangely calm. "My last wish," he repeated in a low voice. Megan waited for the answer, already mentally preparing herself to hear something painful or emotional, but Tyler looked her directly in the eyes and said, "I want to spend every night until the day of my execution with a virgin." The words hung in the air like a slap. Megan blinked, bewildered. Had she really just heard that? She straightened up immediately. "That is completely inappropriate," she snapped harshly. "You understand perfectly well that we cannot bring a girl here," but she did not finish the sentence. Tyler interrupted her with the same unsettling calm. "Then why don't you fulfill it yourself?" Megan clenched her teeth. "Excuse me?" she asked, incredulous. "You asked me what I wanted." "I answered," said Tyler with absolute serenity. "You are a woman. You are not married, I suppose. You must also be single. If it really is about fulfilling my last wish, what is stopping you?" Megan's face burned, but not from shame, from rage. She opened her mouth to respond harshly, but she restrained herself. He was a murderer condemned to death, and losing control in front of him was unacceptable. She took a deep breath. "I am a police officer," she said with an icy voice, "not someone who should satisfy the fantasies of criminals." "I understand," replied Tyler, tilting his head slightly. "Then I will wait. Maybe the system will change its mind." Megan glared at him. "Think of something else, something reasonable." But Tyler leaned back against the wall with the same half-smile on his lips. "I already thought about it." Megan turned around and left. Her thoughts tangled together. She had dealt with thieves, smugglers, and violent criminals, but there was something about that man, about that request, that had thrown her off balance in a way she could not even explain herself. She closed the cell door and told herself she would not pay attention to his absurdities again. And yet that same night, when she reviewed his file in the solitude of her office, she found herself looking at his photograph for longer than usual. The following days dragged heavily. Every hour seemed denser than the last. Megan tried to fill her mind with routine tasks, paperwork, patrols, reports, but something always brought her back to that conversation with Tyler, his calm, his disturbing desire, and above all the way he had looked at her. It had not been with lust nor even with defiance. It had been something deeper, almost philosophical, a silent challenge. She had seen criminals beg, cry, shout, and threaten, but never one who smiled and made a wish suspended between the absurd and the impossible. One afternoon, almost at dusk, a woman burst into the station crying. Megan was sitting at her desk reviewing robbery reports when she heard the commotion. The woman was a little over 40 years old. She was clutching a torn bag to her chest and had eyes reddened from panic. "Officer, someone broke into my house. They took everything, my jewelry, my savings, even my late husband's watch." Megan stood up instantly and calmed her. "Do not worry, we will help you. Just tell me your address and tell me everything suspicious you may have noticed." She gave instructions to 2 patrol officers and sent them to investigate, then decided to stay at the station. Now inside the building there were only her and Tyler. The other officers had gone out to answer calls. Outside the sky had turned an amber tone. The sun was setting, casting long shadows on the tiled floor. Restless, Megan walked down the hallway toward Tyler's cell. Maybe it was boredom, maybe curiosity, or maybe something more, something she did not want to name. He was in the same position as always, leaning against the wall with his legs crossed. He looked up and smiled with irony when she approached. "I was starting to doubt you would come back," he said. "I did not come to entertain you," Megan replied sharply. "I came to ask you something. Do you really feel nothing? You were sentenced to death for killing your own mother, and you are sitting here smiling as if all this were a game." Tyler's eyes darkened slightly. The smile faded a little. "Have you ever thought," he said slowly, "that maybe I did not do what I am accused of?" Megan frowned. The evidence was clear. They found your mother on the floor bleeding out. You were beside her with a bloody bat. And you did not even defend yourself during the trial. "I was in shock," Tyler replied, and his voice became softer. "My mother was everything to me. I heard her scream and ran to her. Someone had already hit her. I grabbed the bat to defend her, but when I entered it was already too late." Megan did not answer right away. There was something in his voice that sounded real, too real, but she had long ago learned not to be swayed by emotions. "Then why did you not speak? At the trial? Why did you not say it during the interrogation?" "I froze," he answered. "I thought everything was over. And maybe nobody cared anyway." For a moment silence fell between them. Megan was no longer an officer and Tyler was no longer a condemned man. They were simply 2 people trapped, each in their own way, in that room. Her phone vibrated. It was a message from the patrol unit. The supposed robbery at the woman's house had been a hoax. Her own son had stolen the money from the dresser and lost it gambling. Case closed. No arrest. Megan put the phone away and looked at Tyler. "The world is full of lies, isn't it?" she murmured. Tyler gave a faint smile. "Now you are starting to understand." Later that same night, an official letter was left on Megan's desk. It came from the office of the director of the state prison. It indicated that if Tyler had a last wish, and if said wish could be fulfilled within the framework of the law and morality, the department should do everything possible to attend to it. Megan stared at the document and felt her heart begin to beat faster. The next morning she brought a cup of coffee to Tyler's cell, something she had never done for any prisoner. He looked at the cup and then looked at her. "You are being kind," he said. "That is dangerous in a place like this." "You have 2 months left," Megan replied, handing him the coffee. "That means nothing." He took the cup, drank a sip, and fixed his eyes on hers again. "The wish I told you about remains the same." Megan stayed silent. She stood still. "You know," he added, "I have seen many people come and go, guards, officers, priests, but when you walked in that first day something changed. You did not look at me like a monster. You looked at me like a person." She lowered her gaze to her boots. She felt her heart racing. "That does not mean I agree with you," said Tyler, standing up slowly, "but you did not leave either." Megan turned around and left quickly, her steps echoing louder than before. She did not understand what was happening to her. It was wrong. She was a police officer. She should not feel anything for a man condemned to death. She should not respond to his gaze. But that night, alone in her apartment, she saw his face again and again, that strange calm, that broken honesty, and in some deep corner of herself something began to awaken that she did not want to name. The rain gently hit the windows of the station that night, rhythmic like a pulse on the city. A storm was gathering, an exact reflection of what was growing inside Megan. For several days she fought the whirlwind within her, a growing compassion, confusion, and an emotional attraction she never imagined feeling for someone like Tyler, a man sentenced to die. But he was not like the others. There was something alarmingly sincere in him, something vulnerable, naked, profoundly human, and that dangerous humanity began to open cracks in Megan's armor, the armor she had built for years as a woman within law enforcement, as a woman in a world that demanded her to be relentless. That night she stood in front of the locker room mirror, taking off her uniform for the first time in several days. Her long dark hair fell freely over her shoulders. She wore a simple dress, elegant, classic, and discreet, but in it she felt strangely different. The badge did not hang from her waist. Her service weapon was locked away. That night she was not Officer Megan. She was just a woman. When the clock struck midnight, Megan silently opened the gate of the corridor that led to the detention block. There was no one. The others were sleeping or on patrol. The station was empty. The only sounds were distant thunder and the soft tapping of her shoes on the tiles. She approached Tyler's cell. He was not sleeping. When he saw her wrapped in the dark softness of that fabric, his eyes opened with disbelief, not with brutal desire, but with something deeper, almost reverent. "You came," he whispered. Megan did not answer. She simply opened the door and entered. 4A. Few moments they remained in silence, looking at each other. There were no handcuffs, no regulations, no uniform. Only two people standing inside a moment that should never have existed. "You asked for your last wish to be fulfilled," she said in a low voice, barely above a whisper. "I am here to do it, but not as your guard. Only as Megan." Tyler nodded. In his eyes a contained emotion shone. "I never thought you would really come." "Neither did I," she confessed. That night, between the stone walls of a prison destined for the condemned to death, something happened that defied protocol, logic, and everything Megan believed she knew about justice. They embraced for a long time in silence, speaking through the warmth of touch, through the quiet desperation of two souls who, in a place made for endings, found something true. Afterward they sat together on the floor, leaning against the wall, looking at the small barred window through which the moonlight tried to break through the clouds. "I have never seen anyone do something like this," said Tyler in a low voice, and he meant it. "Before, you did not look at me like a monster." Megan observed him with an expression difficult to decipher. "Because I do not think you are one." He turned to her. "Then why did no one else believe me?" "Maybe because no one else took the time to listen to you." And she listened to him. For the next 2 hours, Megan heard Tyler's truth in silence. He told her what happened that night, how he came home and heard his mother scream, how he saw a man escape through the back door, how blood was running everywhere and his fragile mother's body lay on the floor, how he went after the attacker but returned too late, how in the midst of confusion and panic he picked up the bat that was next to her, and how when the neighbors saw him they only saw a young man with a weapon and a woman bleeding on the floor. He tried to explain it during the first interrogation, but fear silenced him. The system acted too fast. No lawyer seemed to really care. His fate had been sealed even before his voice could break through. Megan's throat closed. For the first time in her entire career she felt shame, not because she had crossed a line, but because she understood that the line was drawn in the wrong place. The next morning she went to see her superior and demanded that the case be reopened. She filed a motion, appeared before the judge, and submitted her own report. Her superiors raised their eyebrows in surprise, but she did not back down. She had looked into the eyes of a man she was sure was telling the truth. Weeks passed. The investigation resumed. Witnesses were called again. Forensic reports were analyzed again. And then came the decisive breakthrough. The fingerprints on the bat did not match Tyler's. They matched those of a known criminal who had disappeared the night of the murder. The case was fully opened. The real killer was found, arrested, and ended up confessing. Tyler was declared innocent. The court overturned the conviction. He was free. When the sun set that day and Tyler walked out of the courthouse a free man for the first time in 1 year, Megan was waiting for him outside. She was wearing normal clothes. She wore no badge, no uniform, only a smile. He approached slowly, still unable to believe it was all real. "I do not even know what to say," he murmured. "Then say nothing," she replied, stepping forward and taking his hand. "Just live." 3 months later, in an intimate ceremony attended only by close friends and some colleagues, Megan and Tyler got married. She was 3 years older than him, but neither of them cared. There was a time when he was condemned to death. There was a time when she was afraid to feel. Now both were free, from the past, from fear, and from the judgment of fate. Married life brought Megan and Tyler a strange peace, not a life full of overflowing romance nor perfect moments, but something deeper, companionship, understanding, a closeness neither of them had known before. Both had survived something brutal and devastating, and now, in their modest 2-bedroom apartment on the outskirts of Chicago, they were finally learning to breathe again. Tyler started working part-time at a legal aid center where he supported other ex-convicts in their reintegration into normal life. Megan, though she was still within the police, requested a transfer to the Internal Affairs Division, away from arrests and street violence, away from the places that still echoed that cell. On weekends they cooked together, argued over silly things like which way the sofa should face or what to plant on the balcony, tulips or roses. Sometimes they laughed so much that Megan's eyes filled with tears. Other times, in the middle of the night, she found Tyler sitting silently in the living room, watching the glow of the moon coming through the window. The trauma of prison had not completely gone, but they were healing, slowly yes, but truly. And then the letter arrived. It was a Tuesday. It had no name, no sender, just a plain envelope slipped under the door. Megan picked it up distractedly when she returned from her morning run. She opened it thinking it would be a bill or an advertisement, but what she read left her frozen in place. "You freed a murderer. I am not done with him yet." The paper slipped from her hands and fell to the floor. She picked it up again and examined it centimeter by centimeter. There were no fingerprints, no handwriting, only those words printed in bold, perfectly centered. Megan's mind instantly went into alert mode. Someone was watching them, her, Tyler. Was it a cruel joke, a threat, or something much worse? Could it be the real murderer of Tyler's mother, that man who they believed had already been captured? She hesitated to tell Tyler, but when he walked in later that same day, smiling while holding a bag of groceries, she forced herself to return the smile. It did not reach her eyes. During dinner, Tyler noticed her silence. "What is wrong?" he asked softly. She hesitated for a second, then slid the envelope toward him. Tyler read it once, then again. His hand trembled slightly. "Do you think it is him?" "I do not know," said Megan, "but I am not going to take any risk." During the following week, Megan secretly reopened the case. She contacted the county forensic team, requested classified reports, reviewed files, systems, records, even visited the man who had been arrested for the murder of Tyler's mother, a homeless man with sunken eyes named Caleb Ellis. He had confessed, yes, but there was something strange in the way he spoke, as if he no longer remembered anything clearly. "People tell me I did not do it," he murmured with a lost gaze. "Maybe I did, maybe I did not. Everything gets blurry when you have been high for so long." A cold settled in Megan's chest. What if they had again condemned the wrong man? What if Tyler's acquittal had not been the end of the story but only the beginning of something much darker and more entangled? That night, while a storm broke out outside and the lights of the apartment flickered, Megan could not sleep. She looked at the letter again. The words seemed to whisper to her from the page, "I am not done with him yet." She got up silently and secured every window, every lock, every door. Then she approached the bed and checked Tyler's breathing. He slept peacefully, serene, but in the deepest part of herself Megan knew that something was coming, and this time she would have to protect not only the truth but also her love. If you want the second part of this story, tell me in the comments. A strange connection.